Get ready, boys and girls, because it is the Friday nightcap. And joining me tonight, my friend Gillian Tett, U.S. editor-at-large for the Financial Times. John Norris, longtime music journalist and former MTV News correspondent. Roxane Gay is here, a contributing opinion writer for the New York Times and author of Bad Feminist. And comedian Roy Wood Jr. from The Daily Show, and most recently, brilliant host of the White House Correspondents' Dinner. His Happy to Be Here tour kicks off in June. All right, guys. This week, we saw what could be the future of the grand old party. In this corner, Donald Trump continuing his assault on the truth. And in this corner, George Santos, now charged in a 13-count indictment for fraud. So around the horn, everybody can jump in. I turn to you first. What do you think the future of the Republican Party looks like? Lots of jokes for you.
Big question. Who's more likely to go to jail, Santos or Trump?
Santos.
Really?
Santos.
You said that super fast.
Santos. See, Trump has a lifetime of running the clock and avoiding consequences.
Yeah, well, Santos, his pockets aren't as deep. I don't think his legal team is going to be as thick. But I think that the Republicans are still in this weird metamorphosis state from even going back to 2020, where it's like, okay, well, how did Biden beat us? Let's figure out who the new candidate will be. Well, all right, we got DeSantis. Wait. Hang on. Maybe not. Asa Hutchinson? No. Hang on. Who do we get? I don't think they have a clue, and I think, they have tried to policy themselves. And, kind of one of the jokes we were talking about with DeSantis was that he's just going to pass policy after policy after policy after policy, and then people will realize, oh, he's the guy. But no one really cares about all of these policies that you're passing.
Or they don't like them.
Yeah.
Yes. They don't like open carry in Florida. They don't like an abortion ban. And nobody understands why a Republican candidate, potential candidate, would go after Disney, one of the biggest employers in the state.
He's mad at books and Mickey Mouse. Like, how do you put this history books in Mickey Mouse? So, I don't know how they pull this together, but I don't think that Democrats for any second should believe that 2024 is a layup. It's not.
Absolutely not. I mean, you've got a lot of people who are pretty disillusioned with Joe Biden as well. And I think the real significance of this week was it was a shocking wake-up call for anyone who thought that somehow Donald Trump was just exiting stage right. And, you can hear from my accent, I'm from England, although I live in New York, and I can tell you, for people in Europe right now, what happened on that CNN town hall was a huge shock. And they're suddenly having to scramble and think quite seriously. What happens
How so?
If
Scramble in what way?
Well, think about what that means for foreign policy, for example, the whole, NATO alliance, all that kind of thing. Think about what it means if you're in the financial markets for the debt default threat.
I'm sorry, you mean the former president saying, maybe we should default?
Shocker. I mean, because what that actually means, the importance of that is it makes it that much harder for McCarthy to basically agree to any quick deal and make big concessions. He's riled up the base, he's riled up MTG and all that lot in Congress. And, people talk about default like it's just a small thing. Yet another financial crisis, yet another bank going down. Thing. This is huge. If America loses its AAA rating, then it's a key pillar of the global financial system. It's going to be an absolute shock.
And then the reaction, right, to that line about, I'm saying that now because I'm not president, with a smirk, right? The laughter in the room, right? And the laughter and the applause to him calling E. Jean Carroll a whack job. I mean, that honestly, I think it might be the audience aspect of that whole event that was the most chilling to me. And maybe it shouldn't have been, right? Because clearly the room was packed.
But it was a small room, right? We can't assume that, that room is reflective of the other half of America.
Which is what Nick would have you believe. Okay?
Right. We can't assume that it's half of America, but we can assume that it's enough of America that Trump is a contender and that he's beating the next closest Republican contender by, I think, 80 points. And it's really important to pay attention to that. The Republicans are completely fine with saying this guy has been indicted, he is under criminal investigation, he has been found liable for sexual assault and defamation. But I think he is our best chance, and we're going to go with this one.
Okay, but whether you're talking Trump or Santos, it's like Trump could walk so Santos could run. Remember when shame was a motivator to behave yourself? Shamelessness has been Trump's superpower, and now it's spreading.
Yeah, and everybody was like, oh, I don't have to respond to anything when people say that Santos at no point has just come out and went like, hey, sorry about all of the stuff. He's just like, you got me. But
It's like
anyway, I'm running for re-election.
It's like you get a call pass to do all your worst instincts. You know, you want to cheat on your homework, you want to fiddle your books, you want to go shoplifting. I mean, all of that is just being endorsed. It's appalling. And I think the real issue is right now that on the Republican side, there are a lot of orphaned voters and there are a lot of orphaned donors. And the interesting question is, not all of them are going to fall in line behind Trump. Where are they going to go? Does this create space for a centrist candidate, a third-party candidate, or is it just going to be a hollowed-out election?
But if you're a big money donor, do you want to be on the wrong side of Trump if you don't give money and he does win the election?
I think there are people who are actually saying, you know, whether it's because of the abortion, Ukraine, whether it's what happened at CNN town hall and the sexual assault charges, I think there are people who are just quietly slinking away.
They just don't have a place to go, though.
That's the issue.
And I think they're fine with that because they'll just wait for the next election cycle to find a place to direct their money. They're very comfortable waiting because they can afford to. And they have a level of wealth that is such that they're not really affected by who is president.
If you're wealthy, there's always a place for you to get an abortion. If you're wealthy, there's always a place for you to do whatever you need to do. But my question is, after watching that town hall, how does the media cover Donald Trump? If he look, see, my phone doesn't even want to talk about it. If he ends up, Trump, stop talking, nasty woman.
Lady, yeah.
If he is the candidate, you can't ignore him. But what does the media do? What's the responsible choice?
You push back on him. At some point, you have to go, hey, that's not true. Could you not say things that aren't true?
And not let the conversation advance from there. Not just that's wrong and we're going to move on. You got to stop him.
And not necessarily just move on to the next topic because he didn't get the answer, right? I mean, Lawrence went through a kind of a point-by-point thing on this last night on his show, really detailed. I don't want to go down too hard on Caitlin because I've hosted a couple of presidential forums, of candidate forums in my day back at MTV, but they were with Al Gore and John McCain, and so that was not quite the level of insanity.
Did anyone call you nasty?
No.
Not to his face.
So then, how do you service if you have a conversation with a presidential candidate? You have to service multiple topics over that time. How long do you stay in the pocket of going back and forth, duck season, rabbit season, duck season, rabbit season?
It's a good point. It's a good point. Go ahead.
I think that you have to turn off the cameras at a certain point and stop conferring legitimacy on what he's saying. If he's not going to stop denying the election, who cares what he thinks about Ukraine? It doesn't matter. All of his answers are illegitimate because he isn't even agreeing that he's no longer president.
If you can't agree on a basic set of facts, then you can't play in a basketball game unless both teams know what the rules of the game are and are willing to abide by those rules.
Except I would say that if you are sitting outside America right now and trying to work out how you build alliances, where you put your money, you actually do want to know what Trump is saying about these issues because you want to see what your worst case fears could actually be in the future. And so his comments about Ukraine, his comments about the debt ceiling were important, unfortunately. And I can tell you, when he first got elected in 2016, there were entire departments set up in other countries tracking his tweets because people wanted to know. And that's a challenge for the media. On the one hand, you have to tell the rest of the world and American voters who is Donald Trump, but you have to try not to in any way allow him to spread lies, you know, needlessly, endlessly.
Right. I want to talk about. Oh, yes.
I was going to say, I also think that we also know what he's going to say. There wasn't really anything he said that was surprising. He doesn't have nuanced economic policy. He doesn't have a nuanced thought on Ukraine. He does whatever his advisors tell him to do or whatever is going to elicit the most interesting soundbite and make his audience laugh. He was like a stand-up comedian performing.
1,000%.
1,000%?
1,000%.
Okay, there was other big news this week, or a loss of news. John, you know I'm going to turn to you. The announcement that MTV News is being canceled. And what's so sad for me is young people might not realize what an enormous cultural touchstone it was, right? It got young people engaged in cultural issues, in politics. Like, I think back to Rock the Vote. You were a correspondent there. Help us understand what you want or what you believe the legacy should be.
When a 20-year-old or a 17 or 22-year-old asks me why it was so relevant, why it was so important, I have to ask them to, first of all, purge their minds of Twitch and Discord and YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, absolutely, and say that, you know, young people care about things. They care about not just music and pop culture. They do care about politics. They do care about issues that affect their lives. And we were talking about that on a daily basis. And MTV really, I have to, look, I've nothing but gratitude and love for that place, for the time I spent there. And throughout the 90s, to its credit, they grew that news division into something that was respectable in a way that I don't think anyone thought at the beginning of that decade, especially in the political arena, we would ever achieve. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, old enough to remember, but Tabitha Soren hosted our first forum with Bill Clinton. And we get and have gotten over the years a lot of stick for the boxers or briefs question, but it was about a lot more than that. And as was all of our political and social programming throughout the decade and on into the 2000s.
Okay, but just think about the fact now, what has replaced that? It's a TikTok, it's social media. Young people are engaged, but on platforms that have no standards.
They're fragmented. I mean, the thing about MTV was it was like the Walter Cronkite for teenagers, in that it actually got everybody watching one platform in a unified way. Today, the audience is totally fragmented.
Well, they should all just come to MSNBC.
And you also, like, we knew the hosts. I'm 48, and so I knew, like, when John or
Kurt Loder
came on, I knew something big had happened.
Diego, yeah.
But I will say, Steph, that I think I'm not saying it had anything to do with me leaving, but I left at the end of 2008. And I'd say around 2015 or so, you could just feel, and I wasn't watching the channel every day because it was a lot of reruns of a show called Ridiculousness, as it still is, right? And I mean, but as the channel de-emphasized music, they very much de-emphasized the news department, and it became less and less of a priority. And you could feel it. And that's what's sad to me, is that it was kind of a fade to black.
Put on good news, real news.
Well, there you go. And but I think that because they did that and abandoned news and real hard news coverage, that opened a space for Vice News, right? And we know what's happening with Vice right now. BuzzFeed News just announced that they're shutting down their operation. So it's. But I guess I keep coming back to the idea that it didn't have to be. I don't think it had to end, but I think it was a series of choices that MTV made that led to where we are. And if they want to be the channel they want to be, and it's a shame, because I in my alternate universe, think about an MTV, a really fulsome MTV News in 2023 that was doing regular coverage about trans rights or gun issues, which are more than ever a daily concern for young people. And that's why I'm sorry. That's what I miss the most.
Young people now are more engaged with voting than ever in my lifetime.
Yeah, and I also think that part of it, where social media and our attention span is concerned, is that a lot of people who would have been consuming news now view themselves as people who can make the news. So the camera phone, and rightfully so, has turned a lot of people into citizen journalists. So now I might not even want to watch what you're doing because I'm here to try and post my own footage. I'm here to support my Substack. Correct. Yeah. So I just think it's changed the way that people even consume news, because I think people are as quick to trust regular Joe Blow with a camera who's posting consistently as much as they would you or Kurt Loder.
Sure.
Even though you all have more resources, you all are able to go deeper. But if the limitations are 60 seconds, then there's a little bit more, equity's not the word, but I can run neck and neck with you.
Assuming that person is an honest broker. We're living at a time of disinformation.
Correct.
And AI is around the corner.
And that's one of the biggest challenges we're facing, is that, yes, news has become democratized in many ways, but journalism is a professional field. It requires training to do well, fact-checking, making sure that you are exploring interesting angles. I don't believe that both sidesism is necessary, but I do think it requires a level of craft. And I also think anyone can do it. I don't think you have to go to school necessarily to be a journalist. But when you see the level of misinformation that's going on right now, even in the CNN town hall, it was just a nonstop monologue of misinformation. And people then take that and regurgitate it in these ways, and they give themselves authority because they have, you know, a good ring light and a camera and an interest in communicating with the world. And this is why we have to teach young people and old people, frankly, we have to teach old people more media literacy so that they understand that not all news sources are created equal.
All right, you don't need both sidism in journalism. You just need to report the truth.